Nights Talking Real Estate. Brought to you by Domain. Download the app today and find your way home with Domain.
Yes, indeed.
I like that
Talking
intro.
real. I love that intro. It's
Nice.
fantastic. Well, who did that song? I don't know. This house is not for sale.
Get on with it.
All right, I'll get on with it. Look, John Stanley, of course, and the crack team, they present every Monday night a wrap of the property wrap, they call it, looking at the housing market.
original.
And what happened over the weekend. You can't say that.
What?
We're only guests.
Oh, sorry.
Every Monday night, the property wrap. Tonight, we're joined by the one and only Peter O'Malley. We've spoken to Pete before.
We have.
From Harris Partners Real Estate. Peter, very good evening, mate.
Good evening, gentlemen. Great to be with you.
Yeah,
Good on
lovely
you,
to
Pete.
speak to you once again. I understand John has a look with you at auction activity around the country of a Monday night. Can you just start off for the weekend for us in Sydney? How did Sydney look?
So on the Domain clearance rate for Sydney, we're running at a 61% clearance rate on 758 auctions. So that's a pretty healthy result. In Brisbane, it was much more subdued with a 40% clearance rate, with only 68 auctions in Brisbane. So it's not a very big auction market, the Brisbane market. Mm-hmm. And down in Canberra, they outperformed there. They've had a 70% clearance rate on the weekend from 47 auctions. So the Canberra market has continued to outperform and surprises many people with how strong it constantly is.
Peter, I wonder why, I bet you can answer this, why in Brisbane are auctions not as popular as elsewhere in the country? I wonder why.
Cheap.
The consumer watchdog there will not allow real estate agents to promote a price guide on a property going to auction. That is their way of stamping out underquoting.
Oh, wow.
So buyers who are not who are fumbling in the dark as to what a property might be worth have opted not to partake in the process, meaning if the buyers are not partaking, the agents don't want to put that process out to market. So, the Queensland government there have done a pretty good job of killing the auction system.
Pete, how's it looking in regional Australia? Because I know, prior to COVID and then after COVID, it just went through the roof. People were moving away from the city and heading into the bush. Are they still doing that?
Not to the same degree. What we're seeing with the regions, anything that's within an hour of the CBD is doing okay. So if you think you could live on the Gold Coast and work in Brisbane, you can live in Wollongong and work in Sydney. You can live on the Central Coast if you want to and work in Sydney, particularly if you've got flexible employment arrangements, as many people do. But if you're talking the true regions, isolated regions, they have underperformed because obviously people have been called back to the office en masse, and that's the reason why.
Has that affected the property prices in those regional areas that we saw absolutely go through the roof?
Weren't they popular?
Oh, unbelievable. Have things started to taper off or drop off?
Yes, they have. Unfortunately for those that bought in during COVID, it was a short-term play, and the isolated regions are definitely underperforming the inner city. There's no doubt about that. As I say, however, the lifestyle markets close to the city that would be deemed in the regions are still doing okay.
I've always thought about, a place like in New South Wales, Orange. Orange is so beautiful.
Oh, beautiful.
But it's not commuter sort of distance, right? But Orange itself, lovely wineries, the golf courses, it's a lifestyle to get away from the big smoke, the big city. And speaking
you've got a lot of gold mining there as well in Orange. That's an interesting town that's got deep infrastructure. So that's been a great regional town, that's for sure.
One of the areas that I've spent a little bit of time in recently is Bathurst, and every time I go back there, I find that there's better shops, there's more restaurants, and things seem to be uplifting in regards to the sheer presence of the main strip and everything like that. I suppose there are regional areas that will take off and others won't, yeah?
That's right. Well, Bathurst has obviously got the university there, students coming into town, cashed up. The Australian currency's low, so the international students are, great spenders in the economy at the moment. And then, the infrastructure in terms of rail, getting to Bathurst has never been better, never been easier. So that's going to support towns like Bathurst as well.
On the John Stanley Show tonight with the two Muzzies, Peter O'Malley talking real estate, looking at property. Pete from Harris Partners Real Estate. Very interested in the Peter Dutton proposal to basically stop investing in renewables and park 7 brand new nuclear power stations on the site of old coal-fired power stations, Peter, in regional areas. What are you hearing? What are the drums saying to you from the regional areas where Mr Dutton and the opposition would like to park their new nuclear power stations?
Look, at a hyper-local sense, I can't claim to know what the locals are thinking, but anecdotally, the people that I speak to about Dutton's proposal, everybody's keeping an open mind about it, and I think people are welcoming a political debate, a genuine political debate, and I don't think the electorate at large has made up their mind on this issue. I think they're happy to watch both sides flesh it out, and, calling each other names is not going to endear them to anyone, because people want to know what going nuclear means, and then they'll cast their votes and in opinion polls and elections accordingly.
See, one of the big attractions, I'm sure, for many people living, for example, in the Hunter Valley of New South Wales, there's been a coal-fired power station there for years. Generations have worked in it. The sons have followed that, and indeed, in these days, there are young women who are also getting apprenticeships and whatnot in the coal-fired powered, the coal-powered...
There you go, man.
Not very well.
No.
The coal-powered generation system. There are men and women in there who have been there. Their dads have been there as well. Now, it would be attractive to these people, would it not, to think about maybe having a nuclear power station just down the road where they can get a new job?
I think that's what surprised everybody, is the electorate is ready for this conversation. Nuclear power is everywhere overseas. We obviously don't have it in Australia, and I think the Labor Party thought that people would be scared off by a simple scare campaign, which they're not. There will be benefits to nuclear. There will be downsides to it, but let the debate rage. And as you say, there are some people that will benefit from employment and, associated infrastructure that comes to town.
That was a very long way of you saying that a new power plant would create better jobs.
I don't know about better jobs.
Or new jobs.
But there's no one trained here.
No,
there's no one trained in Australia to do this yet.
Not going to happen.
It's often the never.
Can I ask you, Pete, possibly for younger generations, it's the first entry into the property market, and that's getting into a unit. Not everybody can afford what they've just come out of with mum and dad in a house.
Yes.
New versus old.
In terms of apartments?
Yeah, I mean, there are benefits, right? And I'm just wondering, from your perspective, what advice would you give somebody that's wanting to get into the property market and buy a unit?
I would go old and established without amenities. So without concierge, without elevator, without gyms, without lifts, without pools, all of the associated benefits that come at a financial cost in terms of the strata levies.
Oh, yeah.
So we're definitely seeing the old red brick 1970s walk-up apartments are appealing to first home buyers and people looking to break into the Sydney market, where high-rises in suburbia with high strata levies, buyers are avoiding that sort of product like the plague at the moment in this cost of living crisis.
And the other thing to consider, every time you open the newspaper, listen to the television news, radio news, there's a problem with new apartment buildings. They're falling down, they're cracking. They just seem to be shoddy products thrown together, held together with glue and sellotape, and the developers move on to the next one.
Yeah, we call it cheap build, expensive fittings. So the fundamental build is not at the standard that it should have been in the last decade or so. But there's a nice bench top and there's a top-of-the-range stove there, which bamboozles on the day that you sign the contract. But in time, you start to see the cracking in the common areas, the water ingress issues, everything that we hear about in the media starts popping up over time. The Building Commissioner, David Chandler, is doing a good job, but he's got a big job in front of him, and he won't clean it up overnight.
I was going to ask you about David Chandler. Is the industry now listening to him? Are these developers frightened of him and his team?
Oh, rightly so, yeah, because he's got the power to enforce criminal charges. Well, that's never been the case before. So anyone that is not listening to David Chandler is completely reckless. The problem is that he got to the job too late, or he got appointed to the role too late. These measures would have really benefited the city at large if they came in 5 or 6 years ago. Yeah,
too right. Hey, listen, great to talk to you, Pete, and thanks very much for chatting to Muzz and I while we sit here and fill in for Mr. Stanley.
Pleasure, guys. Great to be with you.
Good on you, mate. All the best.
Peter O'Malley there from Harris Partners